Well, good morning on this Wednesday morning hump day. I think it's hump day. Yes, Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. I have to think a second here. I'm still kind of groggy this morning. Overslept. Can you believe that? The old man today overslept for the first time, and I don't know when. Man, I was wiped out yesterday. We had a good day, got a lot done, and of course you saw the pictures. So we're going to finish up the mulch this morning. As soon as I get through here, he's coming over, and probably about an hour and a half we'll be through and put all our tools up. I've got to go to North Carolina tomorrow to the back doctor, getting ready for my surgery. Got to go down tomorrow and deal with the pump issue and get that filled and talk about the surgery next week. And so we'll be gone most of the day tomorrow, and then Friday we have a supper engagement Friday at 5. So I'm not going to do much Friday. May work a little bit early Friday morning. Not sure yet. Just depends on what I want to do. Hey, Brother Dwayne Johnson, hope you're doing good, buddy. Over near Cookville. We're at Crossville, somewhere there in Middle Tennessee, toward Middle Tennessee. Hadn't talked to you in a while. Hope you're doing better. You must be, because I don't see any special request about you having a issue or going to the doctor or hospital or anything. So I hope you're doing better. I know it takes a pretty good while to get over that kind of surgery you had, but glad God brought you through. Knew He would. God's not through with you yet. Appreciate the Lord keeping you around so I can have somebody to aggravate me once in a while and keep me straight. I need some preachers to keep me straight, man. Oh, dear Lord, what a day we're living in. Hope you and your wife are doing well. Give Wendy my love. So today's Wednesday, night's prayer meeting, and looking forward to what God's going to do as we head into the end of the week. Another week's almost gone, and got a lot accomplished this week. I'm really stiff and sore, man. I've used muscles the last 2 days I haven't used in a couple of years, and that's a fact. It's not an exaggeration. I haven't done much of any kind of labor. I haven't been able to, and really, my wife says I'm not able to now, but it's got to be done. And I just determined I wasn't going to let my house continue to be things not done. I've looked at it long enough, and so I determined if God would give me strength and grace and find somebody I could hire to help me, just a young guy to help me do the lifting, that I would get everything done. And so I've crawled on my hands and knees and put edging in the ground and pulled weeds and sprayed weeds and sprayed bugs and reseeded the yard and fertilized the yard. So and when we get through today, we'll put out 1,600 pounds of mulch, and so that's 40 bags. So it's been a good couple of days. And Tyler, the young guy's working with me, 16. His mom and dad work for DR. My son in the ministry. His dad's the one. Brian's the one that does all the tents, setting up all the equipment and everything. And so Brian's going to help me do some stuff. He's a handyman. He's got his own business, mowing and remodeling. He's working on a couple of mobile homes now, remodeling. He said he had another job to do in the house, putting up some tongue and groove board, gyplap. And then when he gets done with that, he's coming over here. Hey, Megan, good to see you. And I'm going to get him to help me pressure wash my house. I can do the lower part some, but I can't get up on the roof to the second story, and it's really bad. It's got to be pressure washed. And then I've got a bunch of other stuff he's going to help me do. And then between him and Tyler, I've got 2 guys I can call on. So we're going to try to get it all done this summer if Jesus doesn't come. And if this back surgery doesn't keep me down very long, we'll have her done here pretty soon. So I want to try to get most of this done. Hey, Brother AP, good to see you. I'm going to play a song before we get started, and this is a hoot. I spent a few minutes here looking. I couldn't find it, and I finally found their last album before they quit singing. They retired. This is the group that I sung with. I'm not on here. This is later in years. They sung together for 50 years. The Pioneers from over in Randleman, North Carolina. Bruce and Steve and all the other guys. Been a lot of different guys played through the years. My brother and I. Hey, Darlene. We traveled with them for years, and that's where I first started playing Southern gospel music out from my church, where I just wasn't doing it at my church. And the Pioneers have been together, and this is I guess the last album they did. I'm not sure what the date is, but it's called More Than a Song. I found the album on Amazon, but I couldn't find it anywhere on YouTube, but I found it. And this song says It's Plenty of Time. I think it's the song I know. And this is the Pioneers from Randleman, North Carolina. And this is the group that I played with and sang with when I was 12 and 13 years old, just getting started. Hey, Leah. Hey, Amber. Enjoy this. This is going down nostalgia trail. This is it. This is my group. I love them. Pioneers.
I got up on Sunday morning, went to church at 10. I listened to the words that I'd heard time and time again. The preacher spoke of sinful lives, it seemed. He spoke of mine, but I was young. I had plenty of time. Plenty of time to decide where I'm bound.
Oh, that's good. I love it.
Eternal darkness or to heavenly crown. I'm just a young man, yet in my prime, so I'll just wait. I've got plenty of time.
This is the Pioneers, the group I sung with when I was 13.
Down life's pathway, living as I wish to live. Out to be the other fellow, out to get what life could give. Making money is not sinful. Having fun is not a crime. So I'll just wait. I've got plenty of time. Before I knew what happened, life seemed had passed away. And millions stood before God's throne, for it was judgment day. Now eternal darkness beckons, and the name it calls is mine. But I thought I had plenty of time. Eternity waits. I have plenty of time to think of all the days Christ could have been mine. My chance is over. First days are left behind, and here am I. I've got plenty of time. My chance is over. First days are left behind, and here am I.
Hey, Miss Karen, good to see you.
Got plenty of time. Now I've got nothing but plenty of time.
Well, that's the Pioneers from over in Randleman, North Carolina. We sung together for so many years, been friends. I was with them while they were still singing. I was preaching for Brother Frank Thacker, who's in heaven now, was pastoring over somewhere on the other side of Burlington, Greensboro, over that way. Pastored for years and worked with my son right before he died. He was singing in the tent meetings. And I was there on a Sunday, and the Pioneers were singing, and I preached. And I got to see Bruce and Steve and Ray, and and the boys, and it was just a grand reunion. Got to see them and spend a Sunday with them, and of course they're not traveling anymore. They traveled for over 50 years and was recognized in Southern Gospel. Hey, Brother Greg, you know the Pioneers. You've heard of them. Hey, Nikki. And they were recognized at the Southern Gospel Quartet Convention years ago for the 50th anniversary. And they got an award for singing. And they were never known nationally. They were just a local regional group. But they traveled, over the East Coast and all. But as a young boy, when I was 13, I started playing with them. My brother and I did. And I got to travel and be in different churches and meet preachers and be with all the other gospel groups. We sung with a lot of the big name gospel groups, and all the guys worked a job, and we just did this on the weekends and at night in revivals. And sometimes I'd have to take off from school on Thursday and Friday. They'd leave on Thursday to drive to Maryland or out here to Tennessee somewhere, and they'd be out here for 2 or 3 days and then drive all night Sunday night to get back home to go to work and school on Monday. And I did that, and that was my life, and I chose to do that, and that's how music became such a main part of my life. And I thought about them yesterday, and I said, I wonder if they've got anything on YouTube. I was hoping to find something old, maybe the album I was on. I don't have it. I wished I did. The last album I cut with them was right before my wife and I got married. We were dating, and I gave her an album when it came out, the one we cut up at Madisonville, Kentucky, at Goodman Sound, the Happy Goodman studio. And I wish I had a copy of that. That's nostalgic. That would really be, my brother has a copy. I know he does. But if he wouldn't give it up for nothing, I wouldn't ask. Because, it's nostalgic to him too. But I could probably make a copy of it and make the music, but I'd like to have the picture of it. I may see if he'll send me a photograph of it, and I'll post it on Facebook. But just good memories. Kind of nostalgic this morning. That doesn't mean much to you, I know, but this is my life. I'm 70, and this was when I was 13. This was 57 years ago. Man alive, that's and then Bruce had a brother that sang bass, and he got wounded in Vietnam. They said he'd never sing again. He had a big scar on his neck where they did surgery, Hail Agenda, and but God touched him. And he sung bass for us for years. And he could sing bass, but he could rattle the walls. And then Bruce one time was mayor of Randleman. They voted him in as mayor. He was elected mayor. Very popular, very well known. And Steve McPherson, sung tenor, great tenor singer, just a great guy. His wife died at an early age, really just a tragedy. And Steve was the best of the best. He was this same old Steve. You saw him now. He's this same old Steve. And then Ray and the others, and used to be a lot of others too that have sung through the years, but basically the same group have been together so long. And just thought I'd play a little nostalgia for you this morning. Just a little bit of reminiscing back down the old Sawdust Trail. Well, this is the Preacher's Podcast, and I'm Brother David Harrison, and you are joining me live in my room, my office here in my home in Kingsport, Tennessee. Hey, Miss Rebecca, hope you're doing good. Thank you for the stars. Hey, Brother Gary, enjoyed your podcast yesterday, brother. You was about to get with it. My wife and I was sitting there listening to it, and I said, listen to him. I said, he's about to preach here in a little bit, buddy. He's about to have a spell. We were enjoying it. We had it turned up, and I turned it so she could see it on my phone. And I enjoyed it. I couldn't stay through the whole thing. I stayed about half of it. When you got calmed down and started playing music again, I listened for a little while. Then I had a few things I had to do. But I enjoyed the preaching. It was good. Enjoyed the service. I catch you once in a while. I don't never type in that I'm there. But I'll watch you more than you realize. I pick you up and you come on, and appreciate the ministry you're doing on Tuesday to people that are shut in. And then just all of us, not necessarily shut in, but all of us that during the week just need a little encouragement, and you do that. And I appreciate you doing that up in West Virginia. And Brother Gary's just a real blessing. He's a godsend. So let's see. I need to share the podcast so you can listen at work. Yes, Miss Rebecca, I need to do that. It's just lazy on my part. I got all kinds of people I listen to, and guys like Brother Gary Robertson on here. He does every Tuesday from, I think, 7 to 8. And he does just an hour podcast. He plays music, and he'll bring a message if God leads him, and he'll deal with some scriptures. Just a sweet time. And he does it just for folks that can't get out and go to church. He just tries to minister to the people up there in his area and on podcasting. And last night, there were quite a few preachers were joining in. I don't know some of them I do. but they were joining in. And Gary said, we got some big hitters on here tonight. He's talking about some of us preachers ain't no big hitters, but I appreciated the compliment. But we had a good time. And but it's 7 till 8 on Tuesday nights. So Brother Gary's a good one. You can trust him. He's straight as an arrow. And his son Philip, I love Philip. And Andrew, I guess that's your grandson. Andrew, I believe he's your grandson. And so got a lot of the friends up there during the tent meetings. Got to know him real well, and they've traveled to hear us preach in meetings. Been real supporters of us for years. And there's guys like Brother Gary all around the country that we know that are friends that we don't get to see much, but we join up once in a while, either on Facebook or we'll see each other once in a while or talk to each other. But I love it. Well, we're back in Exodus. I'm moving kind of slow like Uncle Joe this morning. I am sore and stiff. I rubbed stuff all over every part of my body I could reach last night. My wife rubbed my back with stuff I've got to go on it. It's all natural stuff. It's horse liniment. That's what I call it, but it's not. It's Pharmacy. It's just like all natural stuff with cayenne pepper and frankincense and I forget what all it's got in it, but it really does. It menthol, peppermint, essential oils. And buddy, I rub it on my legs and she rubs it on my back, and it feels like it don't go on fire. It feels like an ice fire. It feels like it's like it's a cold pack, but it starts, you can feel it. It's like your legs start tingling, and it's like it's hot, but it's not hot. It's cold. It's like a cold fire. And son, you're talking about relax. It doesn't do away and heal. It doesn't take all the pain away, but it relaxes your muscles. And by the time I got all that done, got my shower after I got through working all day yesterday, and I did all that, and I went down to my chair, and that stuff started reacting, and all my legs and my back just started soothing. And then I had a heat patch on my back too, and it just relaxed me. And I went off to sleep. I slept for a couple hours in my chair yesterday evening, and then went to bed about 11 last night, a little after, and I woke up one time at 2:30 to go to the restroom and went back and lay down, went back to sleep, and I woke up this morning at a little after 7. That's the longest I've slept in one night, probably in a year. And so maybe not quite, but probably a year. I slept. I was just tired. I couldn't do anything but sleep. I was tired. I tell you what, Tyler worked yesterday. I couldn't do it without Tyler. God bless his heart. He's just a good little boy. He just turned 16. He's driving. And hey, Brother James Butcher, good to see you back with us. I know you've been here and there. I see you every now and then sign in, but I know you've had some doctor visits and different things. But always good to see you on here, my buddy over in Ashboro. Hope your wife's doing well. I'm praying for her. So let's get to Exodus 34. We didn't get far yesterday. Now, these chapters are not, compared to some of the other chapters, these are not really deep and heavy as far as a lot of the typology and the things that we've had in other chapters. But there's some good stuff in here. We don't want to skip over it so quick that we miss it. So yesterday we started in chapter 34. When we got to chapter 34, got down through verse number 7. And this is, of course, when Moses is told to carve out 2 more stones, tables of stones for the 10 commandments. Come back up to the mount where God met with Moses in Mount Sinai. There in the wilderness, I've been there. I've seen Mount Sinai. I've gone down the King's Highway, going down into Petra, down to the Rose Red City, down the King's Highway I was in Amman, Jordan. I flew into Jordan, and from Amman, Jordan down to Petra is like 175 miles. So it's a about a 3.5 hour trip. And you have one stop on the way at a little, what they call a rest stop. It's just a building. The restrooms are there, and the restrooms are basically you go out a door. When you go out a door, you're outside, and there's a wall there that separates from the other side. And you just do your business outside. It's not even outhouse. It's just out. It's out of the house, but it's not an outhouse. And so I'm not sure what's on the women's side, but on the men's side was just a wall. And so you go outside and have a rest stop, and then have some food there, drinks, Coca-Colas, things like that. And I remember the first, when I went to Petra, and we stopped there at the rest stop, and they had some food. And there was 4 or 5 Arabic guys there eating around the table, and several of them could talk English pretty well. And I was just curious. I said, what are you guys eating? There was a big dish, and it had sections in it, and they had pita bread. It was like unleavened pita bread, but it was in triangles, split open it would look like a small miniature-sized pizza split open. So it would open like a sandwich or like a taco. and it was good looking bread. It was real good bread, and it was for dipping. And they had different sauces. And so I asked them, I said, what is this? And they told me what it was. And they said the different ones like guacamole type stuff, and then salsas and all kinds of dips. It was just dips. And basically you took the pita bread that was about as big as this in a triangle shape, opened up, and you would kind of open it up and dip it down in there. Everybody dipped out the same place, dip it down in there. You didn't re-dip. You just took the bread one time, dipped it in, got your salsa on it, or your sauce, whatever you want to call it. And then you would eat it and then, drink and enjoy it. It was just different dips with the bread. I call it pita bread is what it looked like. Triangle shape, split open so it would open up. You could pack it in there. So I tasted 2 or 3 of them, and they were really good. They were different, but they were really good. Some had like a salsa taste, and some had like, more like a guacamole, some type of fruity taste. But there was one the guys told me to try, and I said, is it hot? They said, it's hot, but not bad for them. They like hot stuff. And so I tried it, and they were watching me when I tried it. Everybody watching me. So I dipped in and took it, and it really had a great taste for about the first 3 or 4 seconds. And then the fire hit. When it got about here, the fire hit. And I'm not lying. I know preachers exaggerate, but I'm not preaching now. I'm telling a story, and it's true. God knows it's true. I lost my breath. I went, and I grabbed my water, and the guy jerked the water out of my hand. I grabbed my Pepsi, and he jerked the Pepsi out of my hand, and he come bringing something. I forget what it was. It wasn't milk. It may have been milk. He said, no water, no Pepsi, no Coca-Cola. He'd make it worse. He said, this you drink. So I took a sip of that, and it calmed it down. But I said, oh, I said, that's hotter than the flames of hell. And those Arabs got to laughing at me, and all the people I was with got to laughing. I said, that's hotter than the flames of hell. I said, I'm going to die. Hottest stuff ever. I don't know what kind of peppers was in it. I have no clue. It was good. It had a great flavor. It was just hotter than the flames of hell. Good night. That was hot. That was my experience on the road to Petra. So I got back on the bus, and everybody ribbed me for a couple of days about wanting to know if I wanted some dip. I said, I'll never eat dip again. I'll never dip pita bread in nothing. I don't know what it is again, never. But we had fun. We went to Petra, and I got to ride a camel back into Petra and the Rose Red City, Edom, as it's called in the Bible. And so anyway, I don't know how I got off on that, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. But I know I did, because down in that desert is where Moses was at, Mount Sinai. When he got all the way down to Petra, you go past the place that you could look, and you could see Mount Sinai way off in the distance. It's there in the desert, and that's where Moses was at. And then when he crossed over into Israel, we crossed over the Allenby Bridge, which goes from Jordan into the green land that no doubt the spies saw when they crossed into Canaan. And it's the place where Elisha made water come, and the water still runs from Elisha's well. It runs by the road there. You go over a little bridge, and that water's running, a stream, a creek. Elisha's fountain's what it's called in the Bible. When Elisha, not Elijah, but Elisha, his follower, and that's still there. And you go from that desert where there's not a tree, just a few scrubbly cactuses and bushes. But you go from that and cross the Allenby Bridge and go into a fertile green valley of orange groves, fruit trees, olive trees, grape vineyards, green grass pasture. That's what Israel saw when they crossed over. When they came back and said it's a land of milk and honey, a fertile valley, that's what they saw. And I've been across that bridge. And that's another story too, how that crossing that bridge was. We had to give up our passports and dump the stuff out on both sides. They examined everything on the Jordan side, checked everything before you crossed over, then they examined everything on the Israeli side. And when I was standing there having my stuff dumped out of my suitcases, they broke a bottle of Pepto-Bismol. I had a bottle of Pepto-Bismol in my suitcase, and the guy dropped it, and it broke, and pink stuff went everywhere. And the guys, the would be like our TSA guys, but it was their military. And he started laughing. He said, "Oh, Pepto-Bismol! Oh, tell me, God!" I said, "Oh God, this is embarrassing." He broke my Pepto-Bismol, and right there in front of God and country. But anyway, we had a good time. But it was that was a good trip. But that's where Mount Sinai was. And I got to see that from a distance. That's where Moses is at in this passage here. He's there in the mountain the second time, and he's getting the tables of stone written again by the finger of God. So yesterday we concluded in verse number 7 with the thought where God said he would visit the iniquity of the fathers, even when he forgives them, even though God's a God of mercy, forgives transgression and iniquity and sin, that these sins that fathers commit will be visited to the sons and the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, to the third and fourth generation. And that is an awful thought, that the things we do and the mistakes we make in our life can affect our generations 4 generations away. That's why it's so important, as I said when I went off the air yesterday, it's so very much important that you consider your actions before you do them. Because what you do does not just affect you, it affects everybody around you, especially your family and your children that are not even yet born, your unborn great-grandchildren. It'll affect them. You know, alcoholism and the sin of drunkenness and dope, all of that stuff can become a generational curse, that it can be passed down, that your sons and daughters see what you do and they can follow the same path. I know I've had many men saved, and after they got saved, their teenage sons got saved, and they would make statements like that my daddy was living in sin, and if he was going to go to hell, I was going to go to hell with him. But now since he's decided to follow Christ and go to heaven, I want to go to heaven with my daddy, and they get saved. They follow their actions of their fathers. Hey, Frank, good to see you, buddy. So it's very important. Exodus 34 verse 7 says that God will visit the sins of the fathers through the third and fourth generation. So let's go to verse 8 now. We're picking up today. So Moses made haste. He's heading up the mountain, makes haste. He bows his head toward the earth and he worships God. And God has showed up in this pillar of cloud that has God covered in the top of the mountain. But he's talking to Moses face to face, but Moses can't see his face. But he's talking to him as a friend. And he's bowing down in this cloud and worshiping the God that's in the cloud in the mountain. So verse 9. And he said, "If now I found grace in thy sight," this is Moses talking, "O Lord, let my Lord, I pray thee, go among us. For it is a stiff-necked people." Moses is agreeing with God. God has made this statement 3 or 4 times now that this is a stiff-necked people. And Moses is agreeing. He said, "I know." So they did the calf thing, and you've caused me to get mad. I busted the stones, tables of stones, and you were angry. You're going to kill them all, and you're still going to judge them. You said you was going to visit the iniquities of those that did what they did. So he said, "I know they're stiff-necked people, but if I found grace in your sight," and Moses done prayed this prayer of intercession in chapter 33, where he said, if you're going to forgive them, then that holy dash shows up. And then he said, but if not, just blot my name out. And Moses put himself in the place of just like God said for a man to stand in the gap, Moses put himself in the place of the gap and said, God, if you forgive them, that's whatever he said after that was a holy dash that we don't know. What's written, God didn't write. What was said, God didn't list. But Moses said, if you're not going to forgive them, then just blot my name out. I don't want nothing to do with any of it. If you're going to kill the people that you raised up to bring to the promised land after making a promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and me, if you're not going to keep this promise, in spite of what, I know they're stiff-necked people, but if you're not going to forgive them and continue what you started, the world's going to look at you and think you're not a good God. You're a God that doesn't keep his word, and it's going to cause us all that's left to suffer. And he said, I don't want a part of it. That's pretty bold to talk, and I can't talk to God like that. I mean, I guess I probably could if I was as close to God as Moses was. Or let's take this back. If God had me in a position he had Moses in. Moses in a great position, the leader of a nation, 3 million people. He's the intercessor. I mean, I know Aaron's the high priest. Moses, he's the guy standing in the gap. God didn't ask Aaron to come before him. God said, I want Moses. And he's giving Moses all the instructions. Moses is going to be the one that anoints Aaron. He's the one that pours the oil on his head. He's the one that anoints everything in the tabernacle to make it ready for service. So he said, if I found grace in thy sight, for it is a stiff-necked people, he said, then pardon our iniquity and our sin and take us from thine inheritance. He said, it's a pardon our iniquity and our sin and take us for thine inheritance. He said, if I found grace in thy sight, then forgive us and take us for your inheritance. We're what you got. We're what you asked for. You sent me to redeem these people. So take them for your inheritance. So we get to verse 10. So now the commission's renewed here. He said, behold, God's talking now. This is God. God has changed. This is God talking, not Moses. God said, behold, I make a covenant. Now, God had done made the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, all down through the line. God has renewed the covenant with Abraham. Going to be a great nation, more than the stand of the sea, stars of the heaven. Going to take them to a land they don't know, the promised land. He's identified it as Canaan. He's going to go before them and clean out all the inhabitants. Going to drive them out of the land. I'm going to show you how he does that in a minute. But now he's making the covenant again. He's renewing the covenant with Moses. I make a covenant. Before all thy people I will do marvels. He said, here's the covenant I'm making. Before all the people that you have stood in the gap for, that you've reminded me of the promise I made to them. Well, here I'm going to make a covenant with them. I'm going to do marvels before them, such as have not been done in all the earth. Now think about what God's saying. God's telling Moses, you tell the people this, that I'm going to do marvelous things that's never been seen in the earth before, nor in any nation. Nobody's ever seen what you're fixing to see. No one's ever seen me do what I'm about to do. And all the people among them, or all the people among which thou art, shall see the work of the Lord. All the people among which thou art, talking about Israel, all the people among which thou art, you're part of this people, shall see the work of the Lord. Now notice what he says, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. Now, if you read that on the surface and don't do some studying as a good student, what's going to happen is you're going to think this is a judgment, God's saying. God's not doing a terrible thing to them as in judgment. J. Vernon McGee said this about this verse. He said, the word terrible here means to incite terror. It's like what Iran does in that crowd in the Middle East when they do the roadside bombs and they send those cluster bombs overhead. Those cluster bombs break up. From one missile becomes 25 cluster bombs. They don't do a lot of destruction. Each bomb doesn't, but it incites terror. It's also outlawed worldwide. It's against the Geneva Convention. It's against all laws of warfare, but Iran's not fighting fair. So they're sending these cluster bombs, which have been outlawed ever since World War II. You can't use these missiles that break up into cluster bombs because there's no way to knock them all out of the sky. When a missile gets overhead, a couple thousand feet in the air, and all of a sudden it breaks up into about 25 little mini bombs, and they go in every direction like drones, and they just start falling in neighborhoods and on hospitals and schools and everywhere else. These little mini bombs cause destruction and they kill people, but not as much as one bomb blowing up one place could do. But what it does, it incites terror. Just like all these drones, these swarms of drones they send out. They can stop most of them, but it incites terror. We've knocked out probably 90 to 95% of their capabilities militarily, but they still have rockets and drones they're launching, and that incites terror because it makes everybody think, well, how much have they got left? And as long as they're launching one missile a day, there's still a chance they've got more. And as long as we don't have that uranium, it's a good chance they may still be developing a nuclear weapon. So, I mean, that's the terror that we're dealing with as a nation. And God says, I'm going to do a terrible thing with thee. And J. Vernon McGee said this is not something he's going to do to them that's terrible like judgment. But this word terror means to incite terror. The word does not have the same meaning as we give to the word terror. It's part of the shield. Now listen to what I'm saying. It's part of the shield that God is about to put around his people. For had God not done what he's saying he's going to do in verse 10, these people would have been destroyed before they ever got to the promised land. Because these are not a fighting people. Not yet. They are a wandering, traveling people that just came out of 400 years of slavery. A bunch of women and men with all their animals and the supplies that they carry, and a bunch of Levites carrying all the tabernacle that's going to be built when they start moving it. Just a bunch of Jews out of Egyptian bondage, and they've not yet got to a place to where they can learn warfare and use their talents and skills to fight off the armies of the Canaanites. So had God not done this, hey Nanette, had God not done this, they'd have never made it to Canaan. So when God says he's going to do a terrible thing to them, it's not judgment on them, but God's going to put a shield around them that's going to incite terror on everybody they come in contact with. And it does. And it's not the terror of the nation of Israel because of their great warfare skills. It's the terror of the fact that they have a God that the world can't handle. They have a God that can take a bunch of helpless 3 million Jews and make them a force that can destroy any place, any people, anywhere, and take whatever they want. Because when they left Egypt, and you're going to see that in just a minute, when they left Egypt, Egypt was so fed up with Israel because of their God. He had sent so many plagues, and now the firstborn of every household was dying, and there was death throughout the entire land of Egypt. And the night they left, that crowd of Jews, 3 million, stripped Egypt of everything they had. Every piece of gold and silver, brass, any type of anything with any cloth, furs, furniture, food, wheat, barley, supply, everything. Because they spoiled them, just like spoiling a place when you go to feed them in a military battle and you spoil them. Hey, Derek, they spoiled Egypt, and Egypt was basically left stripped of everything, but they were glad just to get rid of them because of their God. So God's going to do that to them here. He's going to put a shield of terror on them that's going to cause everybody they come in contact with to be terrorized. Even before they get to Canaan, word is already out. That crowd of Jews is heading this way. And we've heard what happened to Pharaoh's army. We heard. Their entire army was destroyed in the Red Sea. We can't fight this crowd. They have something that we don't have. They've got a supernatural God that's fighting their battles, and we can't win. The terror of the Lord had already gone before Israel got there. And that's what God is making a covenant with them now, that you're not the strongest people, and you're not the best people. I didn't redeem you for that. You're not the mightiest army. You're just a bunch of people that have been in slavery and been beat down and beat to submission. And I brought you out of Egypt, and you've just got what's on your back and the stuff you're carrying on your donkeys and camels, and got a bunch of little children dragging along, and got all the food you can keep with you, and I'm feeding you every day with manna and the water. Every time you need water, I find water for you. I'm doing everything for you, but I'm going to terrorize everybody because of you. They're going to be totally in terror when the name Israel comes up. Not because of Israel, but because of Israel's God. That's why God said, I'm going to proclaim my name. That's what he's doing. He's proclaiming Yahweh. So when everybody identifies the people of Israel, God has proclaimed his name, Yahweh, and they put the two together. Oh no, these are the people of Jehovah. Oh no, we can't go against them. They're going to lay down their arms. There'll be some battles later because they become a mighty fighting force. Time David gets on the scene in David's kingdom, they're a mighty fighting force. David's right arms, his mighty men, and the soldiers and the men fought. Man, they fought, chased their enemies into the deserts, pulverized them, took everything they had, spoiled their goods. But now they're not that people yet. They're just people coming out of slavery, traveling in the wilderness to a place that God said he's going to take them. But God says you don't need to worry about that because I'm going to terrorize everybody. They're going to know of you before you get there because they're going to identify you by my name. That's why he's proclaiming his name, Yahweh. That's the name of the only God who can do what he's doing. Yahweh. Jehovah. Y'all with me? Y'all understand what's going on? This is a big thing. This is a big part of the whole premise of what God is. This is big. God could have just led them to Canaan and said, y'all do this and that, but God's doing the work for them here. This is the heavy lifting. God's putting the terror in the people so the battle won't be as tough. They don't have to fight as hard when God's done fought the battle because he's put terror in everybody. I mean, it's kind of like going into a fight. If you're going into a fight and you've heard about the person you're going to fight and he's won 75 fights and had 35 knockouts. He's never been beat. He's never been knocked off his feet. And you look at him and he's the same size as you are and he doesn't look that tough and he's a nice guy. You see him a couple of weeks before and y'all talk and he said, that guy's nice. I don't know why I'm so afraid of him. Well, he's had 75 fights. He's won every one of them. He's knocked out 35. His reputation has gone before him. And then they start advertising on TV and saying this guy's never been knocked out and he's won 75 fights and he's invincible. What that is, they're trying to terrorize you before you get in the ring with them. And this is what God is doing. God is terrorizing all the enemies before Israel ever faces them. Pretty good thing. Pretty good thing. So now let's go on. So verse 11. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. So listen to what he's saying. Behold, I drive out before thee. Now he said, I'm going to do this before you so you can see it. I drive out before thee the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. That's a bunch of ites. He's getting rid of the ites. He said, I'm going to drive them out before you. Verse 12. Take heed to thyself. Now here's the warning. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, whither thou goest. Why? Why should they not make a covenant with the people of the lands where they're going? First of all, he says, I'm going to drive them out. They're going to be afraid of you, and they're going to want to make a covenant with you. Before you ever get there, I'm going to drive them out, and they're going to be terrorized by you. And the first thing they're going to do when they see you, they're going to start looking at you and say, that's a bunch of people, but they don't look so tough. But we know what we've heard, so let's make a covenant with them. And God said, don't do that, lest it be a snare in the midst of it. Now, what is God afraid of? Why is God telling them not to make a covenant with any of these people? Because he knows if he does, it won't be long, they'll be worshiping the gods of the Canaanites. And they did. God help. After everything God did, they still did. Because when you read over in Joshua a little bit later, you remember the story of Joshua? When they inhabit the land and the crowd of Gibeonites said, we don't want to be destroyed by the Israelites. So they put on clothes that were tattered and worn and put dirt all over their faces. They made themselves look like they'd been traveling on a long journey. And they came to Joshua and said, we be not inhabitants of this land, but we've traveled a long ways. We've heard of you, and we want to make a covenant with you that our sons and daughters can marry and we can be one as one. And Joshua was deceived into thinking that they were from a faraway place and were not inhabitants of Canaan, but it was the Gibeonites. And God said, don't make any covenant with the people of that land. And Joshua was deceived. He believed their lie. He found out later they had to all be circumcised. He did some judgment on them. But I'm just saying he was deceived, because you read all through the chapters we're going to go through later in the other books where they fall into the sin of idolatry, worshiping the gods of Canaan. And they do exactly what God said don't do. They married the sons and daughters of the Canaanites and people around that area, and God said don't do it. They did. And it messed up everything, and they worshiped strange gods. I mean, by the time you get to Solomon, he's marrying women from everywhere. He's got concubines and women, wives from everywhere. Strange gods brought into the house of God. All the kings of Israel worship the gods of Baal. The gods of Canaan build altars in the groves all over Israel. And God is telling them here in Exodus, don't do that. I'm going to drive out all your enemies, because I'm going to put a terror seal around you that everybody's going to be totally terrorized when they see you. I'm going to fight your battle for you. Just don't make a covenant with anybody that lives in that land, because it'll be a snare to you. And it was. We're so hard-headed. God help us. I know I'm talking about Israel. Israel or the church, it doesn't make any difference. We're hard-headed. We're the hard-headedest, starts at the hardest people's ever lived. Well, no, we're hard-headed just like the first crowd was. But we are hard-headed. We are stubborn. And we don't learn our lessons well. This is kind of a joke. Do you ever have a grandpa that asked you to pull his thumb? And you'd pull his thumb, you know what he did. I'm not going to go into that. You know what he'd do? You'd pull his thumb and he'd do something silly. And then it would be a day or two, he'd ask you to do it again. And you know what you do? You'd pull his thumb again. This time just, maybe you wasn't tricked. But the first couple of times you was tricked. After a while you knew what the trick was. And you was just doing it just for fun. But most of us are a bunch of thumb pullers. We do it and we get deceived. We're so naive. Gary, you know what I'm talking about. It didn't change much. You're right. Nothing's changed. We're just as hard-hearted and stubborn and hard-headed. And we just keep pulling thumbs. We just keep doing the same thing. We mess up and we go right back and do the stupid thing. My daddy apologized 1,000 times for getting drunk. I've seen him crawl on his hands and knees to my mama. Virginia, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm never going to do that again. And she'd love him, forgive him. And Friday night, he'd do the same thing again, come home drunk and beat her, cuss us and slap everybody around. He'd ruin his paycheck on a gambling table. But he apologized. I've heard girls say, yeah, he's different this time. I know he beat me up last week, and I know I had to go to the hospital with broken ribs and black eyes, but he said this time he's not going to be like that no more, and I don't want to lose him. So you get right back in bed with him again and tell him to stay here, and we'll love each other and forget about it. 2 or 3 weeks later, you're in the hospital again. He beats the devil out of you. Because we're so naive. We fall into the same trap. You could dig a hole in the ground and a kid fall in it. You can tell that kid, now look, that hole's there. Don't fall in that hole no more. And I bet John and Brandon won't be long. They'll fall right back in the hole again. Why? Because we just keep on pulling thumbs. We're just so easily deceived. And God said, do not make a covenant with them. Now look at verse number 13. But if ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, cut down their groves, for thou shalt, he said, you destroy everything they got. You destroy their altars, you break their images, you cut down the groves where they have their altars. They'd be like oases, little groves of trees. They worshipped in the trees, put the altars in the trees, put their little gods up there, and they'd go to these little patches of trees, and that'd be their place where they'd worship in the heat of the day or the cool of the morning. Verse 14, for thou shalt worship no other God. That's the first commandment. Thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Now that's the first time that God's told us his name is jealous. That's not his real name. But just like they saw me yesterday with my bib overalls on, they called me Farmer David. Well, I'm not a farmer. It's not my name, but I look like a farmer. Well, God's not jealous is his name, but God's a jealous God. So he said, my name is jealous. He identified with his characteristic of jealousy. And this is not a sinful jealousy. Don't even go there. If I've got to explain that, then you haven't been listening to nothing I've said the last 4 or 5 months. This is not a sinful jealousy. But God is jealous for the people that he has brought from Egypt. Look what he's done. More than look what he's done, look what he's put up with. This is a crowd that he redeemed because of a promise he made way back in Genesis 12 to Abraham. By the time Jacob gets on the scene with his 12 sons, and one of them is already in Egypt, second in command, they come to Egypt and raise their families there and become a mighty nation of 2 to 3 million people. And they're in slavery now 400 years. And God delivers them at the hand of Moses. And thanks God gets is just a couple days into the wilderness. Moses, why'd you brought us out here to die? We're going to starve. We don't have any water. We're going to thirst. And God had to provide everything. Moses is the bad guy, and God has brought him out there to die. And then, whoa, we don't have any meat. We're so tired of this manna. It was sick. Manna. We want something beside manna. So God sent quail in with the east wind, knee deep in the camp, and they eat so much they puked it out their nostrils. That's what the Bible says. God gave them everything they wanted. Some things they didn't want. And what does God get in return? When Moses goes up the mountain to see God and get God's law and instructions to build this place that God says, I'm going to build a place where I can commune with you and you can see my glory and your prayers can be answered and your sins can be atoned for. And while Moses is up there doing that, what are they doing? They're breaking off their earrings and throwing them in a fire, and Aaron's using the excuse, I don't know what happened, Moses. We just took it through our gold earrings in the fire, and out come this golden calf, and they wanted to worship because they didn't know you were going to come back, and we just didn't know, Moses. You know how they are. And they just whine. This is what God is dealing with. Every time you turn around and God says, I'm going to judge you for the sins of that calf. I'm going to plague this nation, but I'm also going to put a terror seal on you that everywhere you go, people is going to hate you. But they're going to be a fear to you because of me. But you got to do some things here, Israel. You got to go into Canaan after I drive out the Hittites, Perizzites, and all the other ites. After I drive, you got to go in and you got to destroy all their altars, their idols, the groves. You got to do all of that. And you got to promise me you're not going to make a covenant with anybody in that land. Because if you do, it's going to be bad for you. It's going to cause you to walk away from me. Because I'm reminding you, Israel, in verse 14, the very first commandment is you're to worship no other God. Because I'm a jealous God and I will not put up with idolatry. That's what he's saying. And God is fighting the church today in a nation that's full of idolatry. You know the biggest idol in our nation is that almighty dollar. That's the biggest idol we got. We're worshiping idols of our own making. And God somewhere gets the idol of sports. I've never seen anything like it. How many people will miss Sunday because their kids got to go off somewhere to play in a band competition or go somewhere in a dance competition or go somewhere to play in a football competition or some type of special track meet. Nothing wrong with sports. They did sports all through the old history of the old country. They ran races and Olympics. I understand that. But how many people put all that before God? I pastored a church, and there was a big school in the town I pastored, and big band. The band was probably number one in the country many times, and half the church kids belonged to the band, and there'd be a lot of Sundays. Half that crowd would be gone. I said, where in the world is everybody? Oh, they gone to a band meet. Band competition up in Indiana, band competition, so-and-so. And that's all that the God of that town was the band. That school. And it's that way everywhere. It's just gods of sports. This sports thing in college now. College sports is so messed up because they started paying these guys. I just saw where that big 7'9" guy, that's the tallest guy that's ever played in college football, plays for Florida. Just announced this morning he's going on the roster to go to another school, whoever gave him the best deal, because he didn't get to play enough down in Florida because they had so many good starters. He's going to be a third-year sophomore. They let him stay in school about 10 years now to get a degree. He'll be a third-year sophomore. And he'll get to play probably 3 more years somewhere. And he'll go wherever gives him the best deal. He won't go to a school that I want to go to get a good education. He'll go just so whoever gives him the biggest car, gives his mom and dad the biggest money, promises him the biggest stuff, and he wear $300 shoes and $1,000 outfits and drive a $100,000 car going to college, and he won't make grades good enough to get an F, but teachers will pass him because he's going to be a sports figure and getting paid. They're making more money in sports than they are in professional. Some of them are. That's why a lot of the guys, I saw several guys that left professional sports. Some had gone to Europe to play because they couldn't qualify for the NBA. They've come back from Europe and they've gone back to school because they get a better deal at school. So you got 30-year-old guys playing in college, making $1 million, $2 million a year off of sports deals, advertisers. And these schools like Carolina and Tennessee, same way. They're paying out millions of dollars to these athletes to play at their school. It's God's money. Sports. I know. Well, I'm running a rabbit now. I know ain't no amens much, but you know what I'm saying is true. God says destroy that stuff. Because I don't want other gods before me. Anything you put before God's a god. It's an idol. Anything that comes between you and God is an idol. So don't believe it. There's a verse. It's in a place that doesn't make sense, but it's there. The last verse in 1 John. 1 John is all about love and knowing God and knowing you're saved. And John in chapter 5, 1 John, talks about a sin unto death and all these things, all unrighteousness is sin. In the very last verse of the book of 1 John, chapter 5, he says, little children, keep yourselves from idols. Amen. That's the last verse in the book of 1 John. That ain't in Exodus. That's in 1 John chapter 5, verse 21. He's been talking about all this other stuff in 1 John. This has nothing to do with idols. But the last verse and the last thing John says in chapter 5 is, little children, keep yourself from idols. Amen. That's what God is saying here. Israel, keep yourself from idols. Why? Because I'm a jealous God. Worship the Lord with all thy heart, all thy might, all thy soul. Me first, that in all things he'd have the preeminence. I can quote verses all day. He's to be first place, not your job. You got to work, I know. But when your job comes before God, when your family, listen, I love my family, but my family's not in front of God. I'm not talking about church and activities. I'm talking about my relationship with God. I would do nothing my children ask me to do if it come between me and God. They ask me to do something wrong. Daddy, I need you to do this. I'm in trouble. I'm not doing it because I'm not getting in trouble with God. I love you. I'll help you if I can. But God's first. I love my wife more than anybody in the whole world. She is my everything in this world. But she's not in front of God. Neither am I in front of God with her. It's God first and then everything else. But anything that comes between you and God is an idol. I don't care if you smoke it. I don't care if you drink it. I don't care if you eat it or wear it or don't wear it. Whatever comes between you and God is a idol. An idol, sorry. Has to be an N instead of an A. My grammar. My apologies. Carmen, you do a replay to catch up. Okay. You'll need to catch up on this one. It's pretty tough. But you know I'm telling the truth. It's all about our relationship with God. I said it yesterday. This has nothing to do with how you do at church and how you do when you this is your relationship with God. This is you and God, nobody else. You cannot have anything in front of God. Verse 15. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land. He's back to the same thing. I'm a jealous God. And if you make a covenant with the people of the land, I'm jealous. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go whoring after their gods and do sacrifice unto their gods, and somebody call thee, one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. If you make an alliance with them, they're going to go offer up to their God. They're going to do sacrifices and worship their God. And they're going to have some good old bullock or some good old calf or some good old lamb on their altar burning to their God. They're going to say, hey, come on, go with us. We're going to have a little party this evening. We're going to worship our gods in the Baal, but you know, you don't have to worship. But the meat's going to be good. And Paul went through that in Corinthians when he talked about people being offended because he was eating meat offered to idols. What was the problem? Somebody had some meat left over from their idol worship, and they were selling it on the open market for a good deal, and Paul was buying it because money was tight for him because he was using everything for the ministry. So he bought some cheap meat, and it had been offered to idols, and people were giving him down in the country for it because he was eating meat that had been offered on idols, or had been left over from the meat offered on idols. And Paul was trying to say it's neither what I eat or what I don't eat. It's nothing. It's the liberty we have in God. It's not a choice of meat. One eats meat, another don't eat meat. One worships one day more than another. He talked about liberty and grace. Liberty does not give you a license to sin, but not everything we do is sin. We can make it a sin, but this is a sin. Showing up to their altars and partaking of their sacrifice. And then after you do that, once you start eating at their table, eating their sacrifice, here's what's going to happen. And take one of their daughters unto thy son, and their daughters go a-whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go whoring after their gods, and thou shalt make no more molten gods. He said, what's going to happen if you make an alliance with these countries, if you don't destroy their idols and their altars and their groves, one day they're going to invite you to come to their table and sit down and eat the sacrifices they offered to their gods. And one of their sons is going to see one of your daughters, and they're going to fall in love, and they're going to get married. And then that boy's going to turn that girl, or that girl's going to turn that boy into idol worshiping the false gods of Canaan. And he said, then you're going to be making idols in your own house. You'll make molten gods, and you'll be worshiping the gods of Canaan, just like you did when I was gone. You're right, Brother Greg. Cell phones are other people's idols. You can't even carry on conversation, most people, because of the cell phone. I've gone in restaurants before and seen families sitting at the table, not saying a word, and everybody on their phone. It's been years ago. My family was all here, my kids and grandkids. And I was talking to somebody, one of the kids or somebody, me and my wife was talking to somebody. And there's a whole crowd in the living room, packed, sitting on armchairs, sitting on the floor. And a lot of the grandkids was laughing. And so was my son-in-laws and some others laughing. And I said, what's so funny? Well, they were talking to each other on their cell phones while we were talking at the other end of the room. They didn't want to be in our conversation. They was talking on their cell phones. I went wild. I said, shut those stupid things off. You're here at Pawpaw's house. I want to talk to you. I don't want you talking on stupid cell phone to each other. We're here. Talk to each other face to face. He's right there. But they were making fun and telling stories and laughing. It's gone. And some folks cannot divorce from their phone. Go in church, and I ain't in church 5 minutes. Sunday school, here goes the phone off. I turn mine off when I leave the house. I don't want nothing interfering me going to church and worshiping. Oh my goodness, it's 5 till 10. We have already run out of time. I'm going to stop. That's a good place to stop in verse 17. Anything comes between you and God is idol. God is giving Israel instructions. It's for a good reason. Because he knows how things go. If you don't destroy them, one day you're going to sit at meat with them. And before you know it, one of your daughters or sons is going to be marrying one of their daughters and sons. And then they're going to be worshiping the gods of Canaan. And then you're going to be making molten gods in your own house. And I'm a jealous God, and I'm not going to put up with this. Man, I could go into this a lot deeper. I'm going to stop because I think you understand where I'm going. We are in trouble. We are an idolatrous nation. Sports, money, pleasure, fame, All of this is nothing but just idolatry. God's a jealous God. Hope you know that. Well, it's been a good day. I hope you've got something out of today's lesson. We didn't get very far. We got from verse 8 on down to verse 17. So we got about 7 or 8 verses, 9 verses. So we're covering a lot of ground. I told you these verses are not really deep, but they are important principles we need to hit. And today was very important. God's going to put a shield of terror around Israel to defeat their enemies, but it'll be of no good if they end up making a covenant with people of that nation, because it'll lead them into adultery. And guess what? It did, and it does. It still does today. That's why you're to come out from the world and be ye separate, saith the Lord. You know why? Because if you hang around the world, it ain't going to be long, you're going to start acting like the world. And before you know it, you're going to be worshiping the world's gods. And Jesus is going to be on the back seat of your throne. God help us. Well, thank you, Miss Rebecca. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you, Carmi. Am I resting today? No, I'm not resting. Tyler's coming back in about another hour. And we're going to finish up this end. We just got to put out about 10 or 12 bags of mulch and spread it. I may put down this other edging on that side. We may throw it in the ground while we're there. Probably about an hour, hour and a half, and then I'm through, because we got prayer meeting night. So we're not going to do much. I don't have a whole lot to do. And then I'll put my tools up and pack them up, because I got to go to North Carolina to the doctor tomorrow. So tomorrow, Thursday, where I usually have my podcast, I'll be on the road. So there'll be no podcast tomorrow. I'm sorry, but I'll be on the road driving down to North Carolina. I've got to be there at 10:30. So right at podcast time at 9 o'clock, we'll be coming out of Whitfield, Virginia, heading down the mountain, and there's no good signal there. And I can't do a podcast while I drive. I can't read and drive and all at the same time. And my wife will probably drive, but I still can't. The signal's not good enough. So I'm not going to do a podcast tomorrow, so you'll have off tomorrow, but I'll be back Friday. I'll put it on my Facebook so you'll remember, but tomorrow will not be on. I'm sorry, but I've got these doctor appointments. It's going to be like this for a while, because I've got to get ready. My back surgery is next week for the test run of my spinal stimulator. They'll put it in next Thursday, keep it in till the next Thursday, take it out, then analyze how it went. If everything went good, then they'll probably schedule the surgery sometime in May. And when I have the surgery, it's about 2 to 3 hours outpatient. I'll come home that night, may stay in a motel that night, may not feel like traveling across the mountain back from surgery. Hadn't decided yet on that. We'll talk to the doctor, and then we'll come back, and we'll be about 4-week recovery to where I start feeling like myself again. I'll not be disabled during that time. I'll still be able to get up and move, and I'll still be able to do the podcast. I'm just not going to be able to bend, stoop, lift, do any kind of heavy activity. So that'll be just a little restriction there. So I'll do what I have to do to get through this. Okay, I love you guys. Hope you have a good day. And if you're able to be in church tonight, back your preacher up, back your church. Most of all, back God up. Love you guys. Have a good day. Well, I wish I could cut the thing off.